This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome, everybody, to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malone, and with me is Mark Souza. Mark, do you know that bears eat beets?
Bears?
Yes, they eat beets.
Like all bears, or just like black bears?
Bears, beets, Battlestar Galactica.
Wow.
You don't watch The Office, do you?
The triple Bs, huh?
You don't watch The Office, do you?
I watch it, but not like you.
It's one of the most famous scenes in the whole show.
I did not know that bear. Is that real, though, or is that just...
I honestly don't know. It probably is true.
Okay.
Well, it's a vegetable, and they probably eat vegetables.
Okay.
I know they're carnivores, but whatever. I thought you watched Office a little bit more. Anyways, welcome. We got some things to talk about. We're going to round up the NBA to start off, and then we're going to actually have a little fun and talk about the worst teams in American sports right now and say which one's the worst of the worst.
Such negative ideas.
But isn't that great? Negative. It's talking about the worst teams is a lot more fun than talking about the best teams.
That's true. America loves making fun of failures. So.
Absolutely. Also, we're going to talk about some other news in the NFL, such as Reuben Foster and his, after being cut by the 49ers, where he's off to next, as well as Aldon Smith and where his ramifications are in his recent court case. And other things in the last segment we have to talk about, we will talk about. But let's start off with the NBA, shall we?
Let's do it.
Yesterday, the Denver Nuggets destroyed LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers 117-85. Wasn't even that close from the beginning, to be honest with you. I mean, at the end of the first quarter, it was 30-26, but after that, it just felt like it was all Nuggets throughout the game. And,
yeah, I mean, it was a good game in the first half. The second half, the Nuggets blew it open.
Yeah, and Paul Millsap, 20 points, 11 rebounds. There were 3 different players with 20 points exactly for the Nuggets, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, they're a tough team to guard because they have multiple players that can...
And they're a
damage.
great defensive team. That's, I think, the most crucial.
What I like about them is how they run their offense through their center. Like Jokic, he's pretty much
he's
their
their best
point.
player. Yeah, he's their best player. But
you don't often see the center, though, kind of being the point guard.
But also their defense I need to talk about. Like, there was multiple players with steals. 4 players off the bench had a steal. Michael Beasley off the bench had 2 steals, and 2 starters had Jokic and Millsap had steals. And 3 other starters had blocks, and then a bench player also had a block in Plumlee. That's great defensive effort.
And they only allowed 35 total points in the second half, which is crazy.
That's dominant defense. You talk about defense wins championships. That's incredible.
I believe that was the 10th game now that Denver has held an opponent under 100 points, which in today's NBA, that's ridiculous. That's half of their games that they've played.
And how many times have we seen a game that go way over 100? I mean, okay. You want to look at the rest of the games?
What is the average? I think the average in the NBA is like 108,
well, how about this?
109.
Okay, here are the other games that happen. I'll just tell the scores. I won't say the teams. 109-104, 122-114, 115-113, and 115-108. Every single game besides this game had an over 100-point team, except for the Lakers. So you got to give the Nuggets a round of applause for that.
Yeah, they stepped it up in that second half. You could see the Lakers, they couldn't get in a rhythm. They couldn't hit shots. Lonzo Ball got injured in the first half. He sprained his ankle, so he didn't return in the second half. as well. But LeBron, he had a very, very off-color night for him.
Didn't he look frustrated to you? He looked like visibly frustrated.
He did. I think I read a stat that it was the first time in his career where he went a whole half without scoring a field goal.
This is his stats, just the whole game. 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. That is terrible for him. That's a pretty solid game, all things considered, but that's still so tiny for him. Usually it's 30 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists.
Yeah, very off color. Like I said, 14, 7, and 2. I mean, you expect more assists for
That's
sure.
a bench player or something, you know? That's someone that didn't play the whole game. He played 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who averages points in the upper 20s, rebounds and assists near 10 a game.
His player efficiency rating is way up there, and that did not show in this game at all.
Mm-hmm.
So very disappointing for him. And he had 2 blocks and 2 steals, so he had a pretty decent game on the defensive side of the ball, all things considered. But he went 0 for 4 from threes, 4 of 6 from free throws, which usually he makes all his free throws. So missing 2 is kind of off for him as well. And 5 of 15 total field goals. So that's just...
What I found interesting was that there was 2 M. Beasleys that played in this game. Michael Beasley for the Lakers and Malik Beasley for the Nuggets.
Oh, I said Mike Beasley for the Nuggets. Yeah, that's what I meant for Beasley for the Nuggets had 20 points, not Michael Beasley.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for checking me there. I forgot that there were 2 M. Beasleys playing these games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for the Lakers, I mean, I don't think anybody played well, especially in that second half. I mean, 35 points speaks for itself. The team shot, once again, I'll keep bringing this up all season, that you can usually tell how the Lakers, especially the Lakers, but most NBA teams, you can usually tell if they won or lost by how well they shot the 3 that night. 14% for the Lakers.
14.
That's not going to win anything.
That is putrid.
That's not going to get it done.
I can smell that. That's how bad it is.
And you look at the Denver side, 36% from 3. Not great, but pretty average. And both teams, the Nuggets shot 48% from the field, and the Lakers were at 39%. Just a terrible shooting night for the Lakers. I mean, you're not going to win shooting under 40%, especially when your threes are 14%. It just does not happen, especially in today's NBA. But the Nuggets, Mike Malone said some interesting things after the game.
Yeah, he kind of blasted the Lakers fans a little bit because
there's a lot of Laker fans in attendance in Denver.
He was talking about how a lot of fans go with the teams, like the Lakers and the Celtics and the Warriors.
Yeah, they got
like bandwagon fans.
Fans all over.
I think that's what he meant. And he would say, "Yeah, come to our games. You just hope you got to take the L on your way out."
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was great. Which is like, yeah, you can cheer for the team, but take the loss when you're cheering for them.
Even their commentator, when it was late in the fourth and Laker fans started filing out, he mentioned and the Laker fans are leaving or something like that.
Oh, they were having a field day.
Throwing some shade to the Los Angeles Laker crowd.
Well, I think they're kind of tired of this whole bandwagon fan base, and they don't really get a lot of Nuggets fans, and the Nuggets are trying to come back a little bit, but I think they understand the fact that they don't have a big fan base as big as the Lakers.
Well, that fan base is certainly growing as they sit at 14-7. They're looking like one of the best teams in the NBA so far.
Yes, but again, we got to hold on until when the playoffs arrive.
I'm crowning them. I'm crowning them one of the best teams in the NBA.
Well, right now I would agree with you, but can we wait till the end of the season to
You
make
can
the
wait.
remarks? I'll wait.
I just know that they're for real.
Nothing against Denver. I'm just saying that we've seen these things before where a team starts out hot and then is burnt by the time the playoffs arrive.
That may be true, but I feel very confident in sustained success with them, and it's because of their defense. They're one of the best, if not the best.
They are the
team.
best defensive team in the league. I don't doubt that for a
Here's
second.
another thing. They might have the best home court advantage in the NBA, and that's just because of the altitude.
Yeah. And
it's hard for teams to play against them.
People are like, oh, that's nothing. They practice in that. No, when you really play in that is very hard to breathe in when you're running up and down the court.
They have the advantage of playing in it
They're
not
used to
only
it.
just in practice, but 41 games, and other teams will play against them in Denver at most twice a year. So they're never going to be comfortable with it, right? They might get through it, and they might win on that given night, but it's certainly a factor.
After the game, they're like, "Get me out of here! I need air."
And that's kind of why I think Denver is going to sustain success. Other things, of course, they have a wide range of guys who can score, but the fact is that defense travels, especially in NBA. Like, it's a good defensive team always has a chance. We see it with Memphis right now too, and Denver is a really tough place to play. So do I think they're gonna finish with 60 wins? Probably not, but I'm pretty confident that they'll be a top
50.
I think they'll be a top 4 team. I really am confident that they'll be a top 4 team in the West.
I can give them 50 wins, honestly.
I'm more confident that they'll stay in the top 4 than the Jazz will get back in the top 5 or 6. So,
well, speaking of Memphis, like you were saying, Memphis played against the Raptors and fell to the Raptors 122-114. Lowry with 24 points, 6 assists. Leonard had 17 points, 10 rebounds himself. But this game just, even though Marcus Hall had 27 points, Connolly had 20 points himself, it still wasn't enough. Memphis falls to Toronto. Does this put a damper on how good the Grizzlies are playing right now, that maybe they are not as good against elite teams as they are against other teams? Does this put a damper on their record?
I don't think so, because they just lost to the best team in basketball right now. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying you put the Raptors over their Bucks? Well, I'm saying right now, the Raptors are the best team. They're 18-4. Look at their win percentage. They're well above everybody else.
They have won their last 6 games.
They're winning at an 82% clip right now, where, I mean, that's just insane. They're 18-4. The Grizzlies are having a very good season, too. And so I don't think it takes anything away from what they've done.
Let me ask you something. Do you think there should be more Canadian teams in the NBA? Because I feel like the fan base in Canada is huge.
Well, Vancouver, we saw it didn't really work out there.
Vancouver's I know it's kind of a big area, but I don't think they're a big team. They love their Canucks. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like that was not meant for another.
Toronto's a very diverse metropolitan city, so I think any sport does well there.
Montreal was good with the Expos, all things considered.
Yeah, maybe. I think we'll see more Canadian teams in the future.
I hope so.
But do you think that would be at the expense of a team moving there or an expansion team?
Yeah, I think if it had to come down to it, it'll be an expansion team.
Yeah.
If one team is going to go to America, they need it even and out. They'll add a team to Canada.
I could see that.
I don't see it being Vancouver. I can see it being Montreal, like I said.
Have you ever been to Vancouver?
No, I haven't.
It is a beautiful city.
I heard many things about Canada and that it's lovely.
I've never been to Toronto. I hear great things about Toronto, but I have been to Vancouver, and let me tell you something, Jeff. If you get a chance to go there, I think you'll be very impressed.
Canada is definitely one of my places on my bucket list. I've been to Hawaii, I've been to Mexico, I've been to the Bahamas and all that stuff. 2 of the places I've never been to Europe and I've never been to Canada, and those are the 2 places I really want to visit.
Well, Toronto's...
That in Japan.
Toronto's pretty far from California, but Vancouver to California is not far at all.
Well, when you see them, they're in the Western Conferences when you talk about the NHL and the Vancouver Canucks. So,
yeah, so if you were to fly to Vancouver, I'd recommend it. In fact, when I've gone there, I've actually flown to Seattle and drove to Vancouver, which is about a 3-hour drive. But it's nice. That part of the world is very nice. I haven't been there in the winter though, so that
must be the place you have to avoid.
I'm certainly somebody who's not a fan of cold, for sure. But in the summertime, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's a lot like San Francisco, in my opinion. So, yeah, how impressive are the Raptors though? I mean, 18-4. I loved the Kawhi Leonard trade. I thought it was great that they made that move, but this is even going better than I thought.
Yeah. I think this has exceeded expectations for sure.
It's like him and Lowry have just taken this team to a different level. So, and we've seen DeRozan not struggle really, but we've seen the Spurs struggle, and DeRozan, he's been a decent player. Don't get me wrong. They got a good player back from Kawhi, but I think it's obvious that Kawhi is a big difference maker.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Kawhi, honestly, before his NBA Finals MVP, he was kind of, under the radar. Then he won that MVP. All of a sudden, he's becoming this elite player.
Yeah.
And it's great to see.
How about that Pacers-Suns game last night, 109-104? But I think what we need to talk about is DeAndre Ayton just getting his ankles broken by Darren Collison last night. I know you saw the highlight. What'd you think of that?
It looked like he broke his ankle, honestly.
It was a welcome to the NBA young guy kind of moment right there. Darren Collison, the veteran of the NBA, solid veteran, just kind of crossed over Ayton. Ayton takes a bad step. He gets fooled by the crossover, and all of a sudden the 7-footer is rolling on the ground.
Yeah.
It was one of those Instagram and Twitter videos that you'll see from here on out, probably for a long time.
Yeah. It was basically, I think every top draft selection has had these moments where it's like, ooh, ouch, welcome to the league, son.
Yeah.
And that was his.
So the Pacers are now 13-8. And the Suns fall to 4-16. The Suns are getting closer and closer to being the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah, isn't that's odd?
I'm a little shocked by that. I'm not shocked, surprised. That's a better word.
I'm like, huh? That's just how I can't really explain it without that. Huh? That's the best I can do.
So I do think that they're probably the worst team in the Western Conference, but with Ariza, I thought he was a really good signing. Ayton and Booker, I just thought I had a better outlook for this team. I thought they'd probably win like close to 30 games. I don't know if that's too high. It might be too high, but I mean they're on track to win like 15 games this year, 16 games. That seems really, really low.
Yeah, I think anything under 30 is like considered an abject failure of a season. No.
So I'd say so. They've played 20 games and they have 4 wins. So they're literally on pace to win like 16 and a quarter games.
Yes, because you can win a quarter of a game.
Yeah, they could go 16 and a quarter and do the math.
A third, 6 and a third,
3 quarters.
Yeah.
Does that check out? I don't think my math. I think it's 65 and 3 quarters. Yeah, so I think that checks out. Okay. Anyways, enough of my math, which I'm terrible at, and back to action around the NBA last night. The Hawks beat the Heat 115-113. The Heat wore the Miami Vice uniforms with the Miami Vice court, and it didn't work out for them. Maybe they should throw them away after last night's loss.
I still like the uniforms. I still want to keep them.
The bright pink on the court was fun to see.
Yeah, I like colors you don't usually see in sports on like a court like that. Like you never really think about pink. Like not a lot of teams have pink in their jerseys or anything like that. So
the pink and the black court. Did you happen to take a look at that court that they had?
I liked it.
It's pretty interesting. They were having some fun with it on NBA TV last night.
I like the it's just different. I like it's just unique.
But losing to the Hawks, maybe it's we maybe shouldn't wear this anymore.
Maybe too much. Maybe just replace the black key with a pink key and just go all out with it.
Yeah, don't go halfway. If you're gonna do it, just do it right.
Yeah.
So the Hawks 5-16, and the Heat. That's a team that's been very disappointing to me. What about you? They're 7-13. I thought they were a playoff team in the East.
Yeah, I think everyone did, but
I mean, I know they're a team that has deficiencies, but I don't know. It just Winslow, Adebayo, Dwayne Wade all coming off the bench. Just seems like they're a better team than a lot of those Eastern Conference teams that are ahead of them right now. So
yeah, well, we all expected like a lot of things to happen over the season, and like we didn't expect the Nuggets to be so high up there. We expected Toronto to be good, but I don't think that good.
It's like the meme, like expectations versus reality.
Absolute 100%. That's exactly what it is.
So Detroit won 115-108 against the Knicks. Knicks are 7-15. Detroit's 11-7. Anything surprising about either of these two teams' seasons so far?
Yeah.
You thought the Knicks would be better or Detroit would be worse?
I thought Detroit would be worse. That's what I'm trying to process here, is that Detroit like Blake Griffin is becoming a man of his own. Like he's becoming a huge part of this team. Like he's averaging near 30 points a game.
Yeah.
And that he wasn't doing that in Los Angeles.
I think we've seen him. I think last year it took a minute for him to adjust getting traded, but I think he's more comfortable now. And I think that they look like it's his team now instead of like he's a really good player on this team. Like it looks like it's his team now. So interesting. What do you say we take a break?
Sure, we can take a break. When we get back, we'll be
worst
talking about
team in American sports, right?
Yes, I'm excited for this one, to be honest with you.
All right.
And we'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We just rounded up the NBA games that happened yesterday. Now we're going to the worst teams in American sports. We'll start with the NFL because I feel like that's more fun to do.
Okay.
Maybe not more fun, but more interesting to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to go with like the worst teams in the standings and go from there. So we'll start with.
I'll tell you right now that my worst team, worst franchise in the NFL has not one of the worst records. At least they're not in the bottom 5. Let's put it that way.
Oh, can I guess?
You can guess.
Is it New York?
No.
The Buccaneers?
I thought about them.
It's not the Browns, is it?
No. I'll tell you.
The Bengals?
Bengals are considerable, yes. Detroit, that's my team.
Detroit. Okay, the 4-7 Detroit Lions. Okay.
I know they're 4-7, but that ship is not going up, it's sinking. First off, they haven't won a championship, or at least a Super Bowl, I should say. We saw in Jeopardy yesterday. It said this team won. What was the question? Like,
is that what put you over the top? Is the Jeopardy question the NFC North team that's bound to win a Super Bowl by 2030?
No, I just think that team, that franchise has been mismanaged so bad. I mean, Matt Stafford's probably the best quarterback in their history, which is sad. Barry Sanders and Megatron are probably their 2 best players ever, both retired early. Like, everything about them is just not good. Just not good.
Yeah.
I know it's depressing, but how depressing would it be to be a Detroit Lions fan, honestly?
Pretty
you play
depressing.
You play in a division where you've seen Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre literally dominate you every single year for the last 27, 28 years. Like this, it's getting to when you talk about the numbers here, it can get pretty bad.
Yeah.
You just saw the Bears jump past you after a 1-year rebuild.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who would you say is the worst team in the NFL? The worst franchise in the NFL? Not the worst just team, just the worst, I don't know, franchise in National Football League.
You might be surprised by this, but again, you might not. It's the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay. I'm only a little surprised by it because they have had recent success. Like, they have had playoff teams, Super Bowl appearances, things like that.
One Super Bowl appearance in 2008 and they were a wild card team at that game. They were supposed to be destroyed. That was just a fluke, in my opinion, to how they got there. And what have they done besides that one Super Bowl appearance?
I mean, they've made the playoffs a few times. I know they got Hail Married against the Packers.
They won that game still, though.
They also lost in the playoffs against the Packers again in that really high-scoring football game. That was a long time ago. That was like 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, I know. I get it. They're one of the putrid franchises in NFL.
They honestly, they do not improve. I feel like they're always.
You think that they're worse franchise than the Jets, though, or the Bengals?
It's between the Jets and the Cardinals.
And we're not even including Cleveland because we kind of think they're on the right track. But you know what? Cleveland could still be talked about as the worst franchise in the NFL.
Oh, without question. I was thinking about the Jets, but they seem to. It feels like they're improving little by little. I don't see the Cardinals improving.
You could also say the Raiders, but you have to understand they are moving.
They
to
have
Vegas.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 first-round picks coming up. So that's why I was seriously considering them. Don't get me wrong.
They've been in the playoffs, once in the last 20 years, 18 years?
Trust me, I was seriously considering them. But right now, with the amount of draft picks they have, they are looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So I have.
Although Amari Cooper just won it NFC Player of the Week, and Khalil Mack is maybe the Defensive Player of the Year.
I think Gruden knew that going in, that he was getting rid of those guys because he wanted to build the team from the ground up.
That's like pouring salt on the wound at this point, though, right? I mean,
yeah.
Okay, so you want to move on to a different sport?
Sure, we can do that. Let's go to the NBA.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So who do you think? Well, it's easy to say, the Cavaliers, but honestly, I don't think I can do that. I think that's too easy.
It's easy to say Cavaliers, but then when you think about it, they have won a championship in the last couple of years, so it's like, okay, well, they can't be the worst,
So
right?
what team has done legitimately nothing in almost their entire run in the NBA?
I mean, in the Western Conference, you could say the Kings.
But they're playing relatively well at the moment at 10-10.
I would say right now, I think the worst franchise in the NBA is the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
They really have never been good. I mean, they've been good a couple times. Like, they had that run a couple years back when they had guys like Al Horford on the team. But other than that, I mean, they're a perennial bottom feeder.
Yeah.
And they're a depressing franchise. Like, you watch their games on TV, they don't get a lot of fans out there. Like, it's just kind of nothing's good over there.
But I can name a team that was good at one point, but even when they were good, they were underrated, or they were overrated. Phoenix Suns.
Yeah.
They have not been relevant since like the Steve Nash era, and even then they were not in the same class as some other teams in the NBA.
I agree. I think DeAndre Ayton, I know why they picked him.
He's the hometown guy technically because he went to college in Arizona.
I know why they picked him, but man, when I see Doncic, when I see Bagley, I think they missed.
I don't know. He seemed like the right pick at the time. I would have picked him as well.
I wouldn't have, but I know a lot of people would have. Me personally, I thought Luka Doncic was the best player in the draft. I'm not gonna lie. Like he was the guy that I thought should have went number one. But I totally understand why the Suns took Ayton. Mm-hmm. They already had a guard in Booker. Ayton could be the next big man that changes the NBA. He absolutely could. We won't know for a couple of years, but no, I'm with you. All right, so you want to talk about another NBA team, or do you want to move on?
We can do one more NBA team I kind of wanted to discuss and see what you think about them.
Go ahead.
The New York Knicks.
Yes, disappointing, big time. I wouldn't say that they're the worst, though, just because they can attract players. Mm-hmm. They can get big names.
But again, when they get those names,
they're very disappointing.
Exactly.
I agree, 100%. They're mismanaged. Their saving grace is that they're a New York team. That's their saving grace. Because if they were managed that way as a Milwaukee or a Sacramento or something, they would never win at all, ever.
Their owner is also just a guy. There's nothing nice to say about him.
All right, so Major League Baseball?
Sure, we can go to baseball. Did you have someone in mind to start off with?
I know the obvious one to say is Baltimore.
Oh, yeah. But they've been good recently, too. Because he was...
I'm actually going to say the San Diego Padres.
Ooh, okay.
They have... San Diego, first off, is a beautiful place to live and a beautiful ballpark to play in. I understand that it's a pitcher's park. But how is this team never good?
They were good in 1998, but got swept in the.
They were good previously. Tony Gwynn, rest in peace.
Well, that's why I said 1998 was when they went to the World Series.
What was Hoffman? Trevor Hoffman, Steve Finley. I mean, they've had good seasons. I just feel like they're. Every time I think that they're on the upturn, like the uptick, and I hear about how good their minor league system is, they continue to fail. 66 wins this year. I mean, they're getting close to 100 losses almost every year. I would put them and the Marlins as my two biggest franchise failures in Major League Baseball.
You know, I could put the Pirates up there also.
Yeah, you could. Pirates are at least relevant, though, right? I mean, they're at least
they?
I mean, they're over 500. They're decent most of the time. They've made the playoffs a couple times.
I guess, but they usually are on the bottom.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to throw in one in here that you won't have ever thought about, but it deserves some talk. It is in the MLS. The San Jose Earthquakes. The San Jose Earthquakes are a disgrace to the MLS. And I say this because not only did they finish the year at 21 points, Jeff, which was a full 7 points under the next worst team and 10 points underneath the next worst team in their conference, but they have not done a good job in attracting big-name players from around the world, whereas other franchises have. You see Zlatan Ibrahimovic go to the Galaxy. You see Wayne Rooney go to DC United. You see David Villa going to New York City Football Club, NYCFC. All these teams have all these stars, yet San Jose has nobody. Their biggest star is Chris Wondolowski, who was never one of the best 11 or 12 American players, never, even in his prime. A good player. He actually will be maybe the leading scorer of all time in MLS history when his career is said and done. But still, he's just another guy out there. And they play in the Bay Area. They can't attract these stars from around the world, or at least go after them. I feel like they're a very cheap franchise, just on the way that they don't really go for players with big names. I feel like they do their fans a big disservice. So that's who I think is. They've already lost a team once. The team moved to Houston before, and then they got a team again. So I feel like they do their fans a huge disservice.
Yeah, I could see that. That sounds pretty disappointing, all things considered.
Mm-hmm. Their goalkeeper was actually pretty good. What do? They sell him to LA. I just don't feel like they're in the business of winning games, if that makes sense. Which is sad. So, anyways, any other teams you want to talk about, or should we go to a break?
Well, let's do this. Of all those teams, which one's the worst of the worst?
I think Detroit Lions.
Okay. You consider them the worst of the worst?
I just think that okay. Recently, they've been bad. Historically, they've been bad. And I don't see their arrow pointing up. I see their arrow pointing down. I know they just hired Matt Patricia, but Matt Stafford is still their quarterback. Decent player. They got rid of Golden Tate. Kerryon Johnson looks like a nice young player. But I don't know, man. What do you think? Would you say some other team that we talked about?
Yeah, they seem to be at that bottom of the barrel. But, I would also put, an NBA team, like I would even put the Hawks up there.
Yeah, the Hawks are the other team I was considering.
Maybe even the Kings. I've maybe considered the Kings also, even with their recent run of success in this season.
At least the Kings had like that 6-year run where they were a good team. And I know it's been a long time, but like I don't remember the Hawks ever doing that, you know?
Yeah.
And, I know they had good teams before. I know people might be listening like, oh, Dominique Wilkins, the 80s. Okay, but that was literally like 40 years ago. Like,
And did you even make the NBA Finals?
they've had some success, but
I'm gonna look up if they've even won an NBA Finals before. They probably have.
I believe they have, but it has been so long. It has been before we were born. And even if anyone's listening out there, I mean, it's like
1958.
That was the only time. So they were in the finals a couple times, right? In like the 80s, I want to say.
The last time they won a conference championship was 1961.
Wow. So they lost a couple times deep in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because I know that
57, 58, 60, and 61.
They might.
I would have to
worse.
say Sacramento Kings haven't made it since 1951. So, yeah.
But at least they've made it to, like, at least they had a run in the playoffs where they got far.
It's a close call. It's a close competition for the two. I won't deny that.
Mm-hmm. And as of right now, the Kings are looking in a lot better position than the Hawks.
Yeah.
Remember the Hawks they picked Luka and traded him to the Mavericks, which I thought was a weird thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, what do you say we take a break?
Sure. When we get back, we'll talk about some...
Reuben Foster.
Yes.
That's what we're talking
right
about
on
next.
that when we get back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Sports Podcast. Finishing up this week, or this day in sports on this Wednesday morning, actually. And we're going to talk about Reuben Foster, as he was cut by the 49ers after his domestic violence arrest in the team hotel right before the the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, which would be a sign of, like, okay, yeah, you kind of had that coming, all things considered. But he is on waivers, and he is being picked up by a team, is he not?
Yes. He was claimed by one NFL team yesterday, which was funny because there had been people like Adam Schefter reporting that he was claimed, but nobody knew who he was claimed by for a couple hours. It was a waiting period. Well, it was the Washington Redskins. That's who claimed Reuben Foster. What are your initial thoughts hearing that Reuben Foster has been claimed and will, at least in theory, play for the Washington Redskins?
I think they're trying to try to get themselves back into a playoff contention spot after losing Alex Smith. I'm not sure what else that they could do, but I think they're like, he's talented.
He's probably not playing this year.
Yeah,
he's on the exempt list by the commissioner, so
they probably still want to give him an opportunity because he has a lot of talent. He's coming out of Alabama. He's highly touted out of Alabama. He still has some questionable what's the word? Questionable.
Mishaps?
Yeah, and
Transgressions?
Personality-wise, I guess you can say he's got some problems there, like questionable attitude problems. I guess is the most.
How about decision making?
There you go, perfect. And it's a risk taking him, no doubt about it. But maybe it pays off. I mean, what do they really have to lose in this situation?
Credibility is what they have to lose. So I understand what you're saying, that, you know, they're taking a chance on a first-round talent.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is, this is a really bad look for the Washington Redskins. And I think that kind of stuff matters. I get it. He's a super talented player. But you know what? He's actually struggled a little bit in the NFL. And he's struggled to stay healthy. And even this year when he's played, he's been a little bit underwhelming. Does he have a load of talent? He sure does. But we've seen it before. Players who have a lot of talent can never put it together because they can't make the right decisions. Would you have taken a chance on him?
Not this quickly, I would say.
Let's just put this timeline together real quick. So he got in trouble at the NFL Combine. He had a diluted urine sample. He was arrested for having an illegal weapon in California. He was arrested in Alabama for
Wasn't it an illegal weapon in Alabama, though?
It was legal in Alabama, illegal in California. So he was arrested for that. He was arrested for having marijuana on him in Alabama. He was arrested for domestic violence in California. Which he was, you know, let go from because the woman recanted her story. He was arrested again for another domestic violence incident this week. And we hear that there was actually he almost was arrested, or at least there was an incident that happened at his home in California just a little over 2 weeks ago. The 49ers, I thought, gave him a long leash. I think they were right in cutting him. The fact of the matter is, he's still hanging out with this woman who he allegedly hit, and then she recanted her story because she said she lied.
Mm-hmm.
So if she lied, why are you still hanging out with her?
I think it's one of those things sometimes you can't exactly leave. Like, I mean, this woman obviously had something. I'm not saying she had like a thing on him or anything, but I'm thinking like she had an effect on him, and where there were.
She almost ruined his life.
Yeah, and I don't really know how else to explain it, but it just like on a certain aspect, it's like how he grew up, and he was probably this woman was probably in his life for a long time, and
yeah,
it's one of those things where you can't really let go of the past, or can't let go of like a woman that used to love you, and you just, I don't know.
That may be true, but I mean, she almost ruined your career and your life. Like,
well, she kind of just did.
Right? I mean, and not only that, Jeff, but this is at the team hotel. He was arrested at the team hotel in Tampa Bay, Florida, not at his home, not in his childhood home.
So obviously she followed
This drama's
him.
following him. Yeah, it's following him around.
Or he took her there.
It just makes you wonder, if this guy hasn't figured it out yet, will he ever figure it out? And will he even play it down for the Washington Redskins? I mean, honestly, if this thing goes to trial, if he gets convicted, he's going to be suspended for at least a year.
Mm-hmm. True.
I don't think he's going to be playing this year. He's on the
I'm
exempt
gonna
list.
say like probably 4 or 5 games. Do you
What?
think an entire year?
I don't think that he is going to play football again until that case is solved.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then if he's, I mean, let's be honest. She's probably not going to recant her story this time, right?
If she does, I'll be shocked.
We have seen crazier things happen, but this would be pretty shocking. I think we can both agree on.
A second time, then you're a compulsive liar.
It's a really bad look, too. You know that this happened? They signed Reuben Foster 11 years to the day that Sean Taylor passed away, tragically. And that was like a big deal. That's a big deal in the Redskins organization. Every year they have like a, they memorialize him. On social media, things like that.
Well, he was murdered. It was terrible.
In his home. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a conversation that's bigger than the Redskins, though. The Redskins were asked a few weeks ago when Alex Smith was injured if they would consider bringing in Colin Kaepernick. And their response was no. And we all know that it's due to the backlash that they would get, right? They brought in, who did they bring in? Mark Sanchez to back up?
They did bring in Mark Sanchez.
Now, we all know that it's because of the backlash that they'd get, right? They're afraid of the media backlash. They're afraid of the response by the fans. But what does it say about us as a society when they're more willing to bring in a guy like Reuben Foster, who's been arrested multiple times just this year, who's allegedly hit a woman? What does it say about us when there's less backlash or less bad feelings about that than bringing in a guy who kneeled for a national anthem? And it doesn't matter what your feelings are about if he shouldn't have the opportunity to kneel. It doesn't matter. Like, the fact is that he never harmed another person. He definitely didn't put his hands on a woman. And that's what we care about more. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That's what rubs them the wrong way more.
I understand where you're coming from. It makes sense how this is a...
And it's not just a Redskins thing. I think most organizations would act the same way.
I think it's like they're more concentrated on what society thinks of their moves than what really matters. And
that's sad, right? That society would be more upset about somebody kneeling for a song. And I'm not trying to discredit the national anthem. I'm just saying that's what it is. Like, when you break it down, it's kneeling for a song, not showing sign of respect, okay, if you want to call it that. But hitting a woman is like, yeah, that's really bad, but, he's a talented player,
Yeah. I think it's more the lines of the fact that Kaepernick has been, Kaepernick's been kind of crucified on national media.
Blackballed by the NFL, basically.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like almost like a nation, it's almost a league-wide thing, like, okay, no one's signing Colin Kaepernick. It's almost like that's
why the occlusion case is going on, right? That's what they're kind of arguing in that, yeah.
Which makes sense, in all honesty. And I think this is one of those things where it's just less of a problem. I hate to say it, but it's just like Reuben Foster isn't known as much as Colin Kaepernick is. Reuben Foster is still a rookie, all things considered.
That's true.
And that's just how I feel about it.
And a linebacker is easier to blend in than a quarterback, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's just the way it is.
A teacher of mine, a great teacher that I had in college who tragically passed away a couple years ago, used to have this saying: "It's not wrong, it's not right, it just is." And that's kind of how I think of a lot of stuff. That's how I think of that's just something that reminds me of. It's just, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Anyways,
just a fact of life.
Anyways, why don't we go to a break? And we come back, we can talk about I don't know,
more
something
of
other
this.
than
Yeah.
Well, I guess you know what. Alden Smith just pled no contest to his domestic violence case. We'll just get that out of the way right now.
More cases involving players, I guess.
We'll just get that out of the way right now. Alden Smith pled no contest to his domestic violence case from earlier this year. We'll get that out of the way. When we come back, let's talk about sports and not, I guess, social stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be right back right after this.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome to the last segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Just finished talking about the Reuben Foster, not debacle. I meant to say controversy, I guess you can say, in his signing with the Washington Redskins. And we're looking more at another case, but never felt. He was an outside linebacker, defensive end. Alden Smith.
Oh, we're still going to talk about that? I thought I had mentioned it before we went to break.
No. Well, Alden Smith. Well, I mean, we should put our thoughts about it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Say it one more time, just so they know.
Yeah, he pled no contest to domestic violence, his domestic violence case.
Which is another time he's done that. That's more than once. Do you think he'll ever play in the NFL again?
I don't, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Wasted talent.
He was a great player when he was on the Niners. He had almost broke the sack record at one point in his career. So
he was on track to break the all-time sack record for a couple of years. His first 2 years were insane.
Yeah. And what else? That's basically all we should talk about this, huh?
Yeah, I say we move on. Let's talk about hockey real quick. The Buffalo Sabres.
Sure.
Do you know that they are the best team right now in the NHL, and they were the worst team in the NHL last year?
Isn't that great when you see a team just come back from the brink of obscurity?
It is great, and I feel like hockey is a sport where that can happen, whereas maybe in like NBA, we never see that happen unless the worst team gets a super team in the offseason or something like that, right?
Yeah. Or, like the Warriors.
It is crazy, though. They're setting some records down there. They're making history. But they were last place, and now they find themselves sitting atop the NHL. So,
great to see, yeah. Worst to first?
Worst to forced.
Yeah, okay.
Worst to first.
I forgot to talk about this yesterday, but did you know yesterday, November 27th, on that day in 1985, Rocky Balboa knocked out Ivan Drago in Russia in the 15th round?
Mm-hmm.
And
what was the date on that?
November 27th, 1985. That was yesterday. I meant to say it yesterday, but I forgot about it.
I was a mere 5 months old.
You were alive in 1985?
I'm a Reagan baby.
How old are you?
I'm a Reagan baby, my friend.
Gosh, you're old. You're older than I thought you were.
You're older than I thought you were.
Yeah. You're welcome for the compliment. I thought you were younger. And
thank you.
The new movie Creed 2 is going to, I think it's already released, maybe released soon.
It is released. I've heard great things about it.
I really want to see it.
But I've never seen Creed 1.
It's good. But this one's more about it's like a sequel to Rocky 4.
Okay.
Because
Rocky, I know the Rocky.
It's Ivan Drago and his son versus Creed and Rocky. It's basically what it is. And I love stuff like that.
So is Rocky fighting in this one?
No, Rocky's not fighting. He's in the corner of Creed.
Gotcha.
Who's facing Ivan Drago's son.
Who's also in the corner?
Ivan Drago's in the corner of his son.
So let's see. Both of these old guys are in the corners, and they're
they're
sons.
managers. They're the guy's man or their coach.
They're yes. Okay. So Creed versus Drago's son is basically what's going on here.
Apollo Creed's son,
Apollo Creed Jr. against Ivan. Are they juniors?
No.
Okay, never mind.
But you can basically, to summarize, it's Creed Jr. versus Drago Jr.
Okay.
And
that was the best Rocky movie, no?
Yeah, I love that movie. That one and 2 was great.
I just like Drago. I think Drago was the best villain, right?
Yes. And he was the better villain. Better than Mr. T.
Mr. T is wildly entertaining, but it's the whole Cold War, Russia, United States.
And Drago killing Creed was like, oh, snap, crackle, pop, Rice Krispies. Like, this just got real.
Snap, crackle, pop.
Like, how do you kill someone with boxing gloves? Oh, yeah, Ivan Drago just did it.
Well, he had some crazy Russian steroids, right? Wasn't he all pumped up?
Yeah, I think so.
Was that the beginning of HGH?
I don't know. 1985? They were probably doing it before then.
Has a baseball player who's been accused of using HGH ever just said, like, well, I saw it in a movie?
No, I don't think that's ever been the case, ever.
Oh.
Because it's probably a guy giving him the HGH. The guy selling it's like, hey, have you ever seen Rocky 4? You see Ivan Drago? You want to look like him? take this. Mm-hmm. And also be in a Russian training facility that looks so modernized and have the guy you're fighting or facing off against be in a log cabin in the middle of the snow mountains.
Speaking
and
of
him
fighters,
yell your name. Drago!
Speaking of fighters, you know who won't be driving anytime soon?
Driving?
Yeah.
I don't know who.
Well, at least in Ireland, Conor McGregor.
Did he get a DUI in Ireland?
No, he got a speeding violation, and you get 6 months license suspension for this.
That's a little harsh. Like, how high was he over the speed
96 and a 60.
Oh. Then that makes sense.
Still 6 months?
See, maybe a couple of weeks, I would say, but still, over 90, almost 100 and a 60 is pretty dangerous, all things considered.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Talk about the cop not playing favorites. Like, oh, it's the most popular Irishman in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm still gonna take away his license, which he probably didn't care. He's like, I'm gonna go back to America anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he is worried about it, that he can't drive in Ireland for 6 months.
He can probably hire a driver that drives 90 and a 60 for him.
What do you think about Dana White calling Oscar De La Hoya a cokehead?
That's a little harsh,
and
but
he
I
said
understand
this publicly.
Yeah, I kind of know why, because he set up the Liddell Ortiz fight, which shouldn't have happened. I mean, that's 20 years too late.
He said, "Listen,
I mean, when was the last time those two fought?
Let me read you the quote.
Okay.
Listen, I love Chuck Liddell, and I don't ever want to badmouth Chuck Liddell or even let people think I'm remotely badmouthing Chuck Liddell. But the reality is, first of all, I heard last week the cokehead Oscar De La Weirdo is talking blank that I don't have any place to tell guys when to retire. It's called friendship. It's friendship, you blinking cokehead. I've been friends with Chuck Liddell for 20 years, and the reality is Liddell retired when he should have retired 8 or 9 years ago." Yeah. So, your thoughts?
Yeah. That's
not holding back.
Yeah, he was not holding back at all, was he? And their last time they fought was UFC 66 in 2006. So
just
12 years.
The numbers right there, like you're talking about double digits and not triple digits in UFC fights. That sounds like a long time ago.
Yeah. The records at that point were 19-3 and 15-4 before that fight. And since Liddell won, he went to 20-3, 15-5 for Ortiz. And then the fight happened in 2018.
Yeah, Dana White also took exception to the California State Athletic Commission for letting that fight happen, for letting Chuck Liddell fight. So
because he's be concussioned up.
Like they said that he had no business fighting, and that it was pretty obvious before he entered the octagon. So, anyways, Jeff, do you have any last thoughts or last words in today's sports?
The fact that Chuck Liddell fought is still baffling to me.
And also, if you have not followed the GSMC podcast network, we do other shows too. We will be putting out our baseball and soccer show today. We do baseball, soccer, in addition to sports, football, fantasy football. What else am I missing? Basketball. I think that's it. So check them out.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
If you're interested in other sports or a sport in closer detail, we are your source.
Yes, and make sure to tune into our other sports, like he said, and we will see you whenever you want to listen to us on the podcast. So we'll see you later, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.